Hi, my name is Anna. I am an ICU travel nurse, and organization for all your documents is really going to help you stay on track, especially in between assignments or if you're hopping agency to agency. This is how I keep my stuff organized, and this is how I tell new travelers who always ask me about what paperwork they need and all of that stuff. This is just all of my tips consolidated in the same place. The first thing that I'll say is I use Google Drive. That is my favorite way to keep everything organized. Google Drive allows you to upload files. I do PDFs of all of my important documents to keep it all in the same place. It's secure. You can access it from any computer or from your phone, and you have all that stuff just ready to go in a Google Drive. So that's my first tip is make a Google Drive, name it. Mine is named RN Licenses and Certifications. You can name it RN Travel, and then put all of your documents in that same place. From there, once you have a Google Drive, it's helpful to know that there are documentation classifications. There's one file that is going to be stuff that you only have to do once, or once for each agency you work with, and then there's yearly stuff. So every time you onboard with a new travel agency, there's going to be the same documentation that's required. It'll be, you have to have a picture of a voided check so that they can pay you, a picture of your driver's license, front and back, a copy of your nursing license or verification that you have an active nursing license from like nurses, and then all of the documentation for your physical and all of that good stuff. And then there's the stuff that is every single year. So even if you stay with the same travel agency, you're going to have to keep up to date on your requirements and your paperwork and documentation. Yearly stuff that you have to do: flu shot, TB skin test or TB gold, physical, N95 fit check, drug testing, keeping your COVID-19 vaccines up to date. And then I think that's it for the yearly competencies. I will also say you have to keep your certifications up to date. So I am an ICU travel nurse, so I have to keep my ACLS, my BLS, my NIH, my PALS all up to date. And I get the travel agency to reimburse me for all of that good stuff. So having everything on a Google Drive and in the same place is really helpful. And I find that I refer back to that Google Drive even for non-travel nursing related things. We were recently in Canada and I had to show proof of vaccination every time we went into a restaurant. And I just had my PDF of my COVID-19 vaccination just in my Google Drive, and I was able to pull that up from a folder very quickly. And it was just like really easy to have everything in the same place. Every time that you get onboarded with a new agency, they will set up all of those appointments for you. At least in my experience, I've worked with like Fast Staff, AMN, and AYA. And then they have a compliance person who has set up all of the appointments that I needed to do to get into compliance to get started on a new job. So I will say this, even if you have all of your documentation ready to go, every time you switch between agencies, sometimes they want you to repeat stuff that you've already done. For example, the yearly physical, and the N95 fit check. I've had to repeat that even though I had a recent documentation with like a clean bill of health when I was looking to work with multiple different agencies, which is not a big deal, and they'll pay for it and they'll cover it, but it is good to know that sometimes you're going to be repeating the same thing that you've already done. Even if you already got your fit check done like 2 months ago, if you start with a new travel agency, they're probably going to want to do their own N95 fit test. Another tip that I have with all of this paperwork, you have to do your TB skin test where they inject it into your arm and then they get it read like 2 days later. I always ask for them to do the TB gold because it's a blood test and then it is a one-time thing versus having to go back in 2 days separately. I think it does cost more for them to do the TB gold, so that's why they don't like to do it, but I always ask because it is so much more convenient for me not to have to go into the doctor's office on a Monday than a Wednesday, you know? So I always ask for the TB gold, like the quantiferin gold blood test. So you have to get your physical, your TB test, your flu shot, your COVID vaccine and booster and all that stuff, and you have to do keep your competencies and your licenses up to date, and your drug screen. I've had experiences with travel agencies where you only had to do drug testing yearly, but I've learned since that the drug testing is at the discretion of the facility, not the travel agency. So that's just something to keep in mind. And then also remember that even if you are working in Colorado or California, the facilities go by the federal guidelines. So it's important to keep in mind, just so that you can be compliant with all of your paperwork and all of that good stuff. Another tip that I have is that Nurses is a very helpful resource for travel nurses. You can download the report of all of your different licenses, and then you can check to see when they're all going to expire. I recommend getting your travel agency to reimburse you to keep all of your certifications and your licenses up to date. I have licenses in Maryland, Washington, D.C., California, Oregon, and Washington. And then renewing each of those is like $200 a pop. So I get my travel agency to reimburse me for paying to keep those up to date. I also get them to reimburse me for keeping my PALS, ACLS, and my BLS up to date. It's important to remember that you can only get recertified through American Heart Association. So don't be paying these other companies to recert your BLS, because travel agencies and hospitals only accept American Heart. Also, big tip is to get all of that on the same day. So even if you have like your ACLS and your BLS expiring on separate years, just go ahead and bite the bullet and then redo it all at the same time, so that you don't have to keep going in every like 6 months to keep your CPR up to date, basically. And then additionally, I just think that it's really helpful to have copies of your nursing licenses in the Google Drive, copies of your childhood immunizations in the Google Drive. The I-9 documentation is helpful if you're applying for apartments or you're doing wire transfers. All of that stuff is just really helpful to have all of your documentation in the same place, especially if you're agency hopping and you're going place to place. Oh, I also keep my resume and cover letter in this Google Drive, and I update it as I go. Please comment what else you want me to talk about. Please subscribe and turn on the notifications. I am so excited to be doing a little bit more longer form content for you all, and I really want to help everybody with travel nursing and being a new grad, and soon to come CRNA school content. I'm really excited about that.